All right, today we're going to look at one of history's most famous figures, but probably from an angle you haven't really considered before. We're not just talking about her role as a mother. We're going to dive into how she's actually a blueprint, like the model for what it means to be a true follower.
So let me ask you something straight up. When I say Jesus' disciples, who's the first person that pops into your head? No, seriously, take a second. Who is it? I'm willing to bet a few names came to mind almost instantly. You're probably thinking of guys like Peter, right? The Rock, or John, James, the big players, the ones who feel like the absolute inner circle. But what if the book of Acts actually points us to someone else, a really key figure who was right there from the very, very beginning, and whose actions basically created the original blueprint for being a disciple? Okay, so check this out from the book of Acts. This really sets the scene. Jesus has just ascended, right? The apostles are all gathered together, and who's listed right there, praying alongside them? Mary, the mother of Jesus. I mean, this isn't some footnote. It tells you she wasn't just on the sidelines. She was a core founding member of this first little community. Okay, so let's really dig into this idea of Mary as the first disciple. We're going to look at three key moments in our life, and it all starts with the very first yes, an incredible act of total faith.
Wow, just listen to these words. There's so much packed into this simple sentence. I mean, this is her response after the angel Gabriel drops an impossible, life-shattering piece of news on her, that she, a virgin, is going to conceive the Son of God. She doesn't argue, she doesn't list all the reasons why this can't happen, she just offers herself. Completely.
Just try to put yourself in her shoes for a second. This was a plan she couldn't possibly wrap her head around, a path that would change literally everything about her life. And still, she said yes. That's an act of radical trust, and it puts her right up there with the great prophets of the Old Testament, the ones who also answered God's call without knowing where it would lead.
And that's really the question for us, isn't it? It's easy to read this, but do we have that kind of courage, that kind of confidence to say yes in our own lives when the path is anything but clear? Okay, so that's the first quality, but it builds from there. The second thing we see in her is this idea of a pondering heart. It's all about the practice of really deep internal reflection.
So this line comes right after Jesus is born. The shepherds show up, they're buzzing, telling everyone this wild story about angels appearing in the fields. And you can imagine the chaos, right? Everyone is probably freaking out, amazed. But Mary, her reaction is totally different.
And here's the key thing. This pondering she's doing, it's not passive. It's not just spacing out. It's a really active process. She's taking in everything that's happening, these incredible events, and she's treasuring them, turning them over in her mind to figure out what it all means. It's the perfect model for not just having faith, but actually trying to understand it. But here's the thing about that deep internal faith. It wasn't meant to just stay inside. And that brings us to our third point, how all that reflection and faith actually burst into action to help other people.
All right, so the scene shifts to a wedding in a town called Cana, and they have a major problem. A disaster, really. They've run out of wine. Now, for us, that might sound like a minor inconvenience, but back then, this was a huge deal, a massive social embarrassment that would bring a lot of shame on the family. So Mary sees what's happening, and does she panic? Nope. She just calmly turns to Jesus. And even when he seems a little hesitant at first, her faith in him is just unshakable. She looks at the servants and gives them this incredibly simple, confident instruction. Do whatever he tells you. She's being an advocate, right? An intercessor. She's stepping in to help people who need it. And her action right there in Cana poses a question for every single one of us. Is our faith something that moves us to pray for other people? And maybe even more importantly, does it actually push us to do something when we see somebody in need? All right, so we've looked at three different really powerful moments in Mary's life. Let's pull it all together now into a really clear takeaway. You could almost call it a blueprint for discipleship, taken straight from her example. It really boils down to this simple three-step path. Step one, just say yes to God's will with all the faith and trust you can muster. Step two, take the time to actually ponder his words and actions, to really reflect. And then step three, you gotta put that faith into action and help other people in need. So you see, this isn't just a story about one person's life a long time ago. These 3 steps, they create this powerful, repeatable pattern. It's a model for living a life of faith that's not only deeply personal, but also super active and compassionate. And that brings us right back to the beginning, back to that very first step, that one little word that set everything in motion for Mary. And it leaves us with a pretty big question to think about in our own lives. What could your yes change?